further ado, I'm going to call our comrade from Cuba. Let us say that we have a huge appreciation for the incredible stamina, heroism, courage of the Cuban people. I'm not going to recapitulate the revolution, but we just must bear in mind that in their stance and confrontation, standing proud in the jaws of American imperialism, just 50 miles, 70 miles off the coast of Florida, they've stood. And since 1962, they sought to defend their revolution against the constant encroachment and interference of that imperialist Goliath. They've been under an illegal blockade since the Cuban Missile Crisis, which our last speaker spoke about. And all of that time, they have stood firm, using the resources, human, cultural, intellectual, material of their own nation for the benefit of their own people, and doing everything they can to spread their internationalism to the people of Africa, Asia, Latin America, across the globe. It means a tremendous amount for us to have you with us, comrades, and please join with me in welcoming
Oh, sorry. Oh.
Speak right into the mic.
Yes, I will try. Dear Ella and Harper, and dear comrades, it is a great privilege to share with you again this celebration of the 106th anniversary of the October Socialist Revolution, one of the most transcendental events of the 20th century. Even if some media insist on diminishing the importance of the revolution that led to the founding of the world's first socialist state and opened a path of hope for the colonialized and exploited countries and peoples. The October Revolution had an influence all over the world, on all continents, on all peoples, and of course, it had a great impact in Cuba. The revolution and the battle for the multifaceted development that was being waged in what was the most backward and part of its time also reached Latin America, where the first communist parties began to emerge, among them Cuba's Communist Party, when we were a república mediatizada, a pseudo-republic subjected to the imperialist domination of the United States. The historical leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro Ruz, mercifully summed up the meaning of the October Socialist Revolution for Cuba when, in 1907, at the commemoration of Lenin's 100th birthday anniversary, he said, and I quote, "Without the 1970 October Revolution, Cuba would not have become the first socialist country in Latin America." Later, in 1972, in a profound reflection on the roots of our socialist revolution, Fidel stated, "The revolutionary process in Cuba is the confirmation of the extraordinary force of the ideas of Marx, Engels, and Lenin," unquote. The principles of equality, solidarity, internationalism, social justice, the right of the people to self-determination, independence, and sovereignty, which underpinned the October Revolution, have been at the heart of the policies of the Cuban Revolution. We have never We have never given up the objective of achieving social welfare for all Cubans with the greatest possible equity, equality, and justice for all. It has not been an easy road to travel, and the challenges over more than 60 years have at times seemed unsurmountable. But here we are. We have never stood still. We have taken the risks, adapt our policies without abandoning the principles so that the revolution is not lost. In his concept of the revolution, Fidel summed up the need to transform and change whatever was necessary without abandoning the humanist principles that characterize our process. Dear comrades, I talk a little about the first socialist country in Latin America. As all you know, we are facing a complex situation since 2019. The challenge we face in the economy are very large and complex. There are no easy solutions, and some of them carry risks. In 2022, the Cuban economy did not reach the expected growth. There was a slight growth, 1.8%, which is part of the gradual recovery process, but is insufficient. Also, we had to face major disasters that caused the loss of tens of human lives and billions in damage. You also remember the explosion in one of the most valuable hotels in Havana, the huge fire in a depot in Matanzas, hurricane, and some similar climate events. For 2023, the GDP is expected to grow by 3%. In the first quarter of the year, a very light improvement of some productive and service activities, the growth of social services, health, education, culture, and exports, the increase in employment, and the implementation and diversification of the new economic actors continue. But the recovery of the tourism industry, which continued to be impacted by the Cuba's inclusion on the US list of states sponsors of terrorism, will not achieve the project 3.5 million visitors for this year, but shows a pace of growth that should surpass all indicators for 2021 and 2022. As you know, tourism is one of the main sources of income for Cuba. All of our efforts have been severely affected by the suffocating effects of the economic war against Cuba. There is no other way to describe it. Some of the most harmful measures for the economy and for our population have been as follows. Application of the Title III of the Helms-Burton that allows actions to be taken in the United States against any foreign citizens who make business with Cuba. By the way, all of US presidents since 1996, including Trump, in the first 2 years of his term, have consecutively used their executive power to waive the application of Title III. But later, Donald Trump again imposed the Title III of the Helms-Burton. Persecution of food supplies, threatening and blackmailing the companies that supply fuel to Cuba, and those that engage in this international transport without having any legal or moral authority to do so. Persecution to the provision of Cuban medical services abroad. Inclusion of the arbitrary Cuban restricted list is another list, including Cuban entities with which America's citizens are prohibited from interacting, which is aimed at affecting the tourism sector. And last but not the least, the harmful inclusion in the list of state sponsors of terrorism. The same day of the formal designation of Cuba on that list, January 21, 2021, 45 banks around the world closed their operations with Cuban entities, and dozens of banks closed their operations with our embassies. Due to its extraterritorial effects, private industry, religious groups, non-governmental organizations, universities, and even governments in any country run the risk of suffering retaliation for almost any type of aid, business, investment, or trade with Cuban citizens. However, what the blockade has not been able to stop is the solidarity with Cuba. The blockade will be there for who knows how long, so we must, despite all the difficulties, do things better, without abandoning for a second our struggle for the lifting of the longest and the most genocidal sanctions system regime ever applied against a nation for more than 60 years. You know, and all of this is because Cuba is a socialist country and decides to continue to be a socialist country and have paid and has right now continue to pay the high price for decide our destiny, because we are free and we are sovereign and we want to be socialists. It might take longer to achieve our goals, but we will not pursue neoliberal policies. We will not privatize education, health systems. We will not affect the social welfare. We make enormous efforts every day to protect the most vulnerable. We will not abandon our internationalist duty. Let me conclude with a quote from Fidel about the Communist Party of Cuba. In my personal opinion, it reflects the fidelity to the ideas that were raised in that glorious October and which still inspire the Cuban Revolution. Fidel said, "This party, our party, was born of two essential, fundamental, and valuable factors: the union of all revolutionaries and a scientific doctrine, a political revolutionary philosophy, Marxism-Leninism. From the union and the idea, from unity and doctrine, in the crucible of a revolutionary process, this party has been formed. And these two things we will always have to watch over: unity and doctrine, because they are our fundamental pillars." Unquote. Thank you very much.